We are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a podcast channel where we talk to PropTech founders and CEOs from all over the world and learn from them insights on their PropTech businesses. Today we have a few accomplished guests on this show. We have the founders of OWNR.EU. They are disrupting the home ownership with their rent to buy housing product. And also accompanying them is the director of a PR agency, Kai, who is representing Owner today. But before I introduce further on them, I would request all you listeners to hit that subscribe button because by doing that, these insightful conversations reach to a wider audience. So, with that, let's welcome our guest today. So first guest is
Thank you.
Sandeep Agarwal. Sandeep is a capital markets professional. He has had a strong producer manager track record. His specialization is in financial institutions, debt finance across global markets. He was the MD investment banking and capital markets in Credit Suisse for more than 17 years. Before that, he was also with Deutsche Bank. And currently, he's building a globally scalable PropTech opportunity in the residential real estate space with Owner. Our second guest today is Nils Kohle. Nils is a digital strategist and a leader with high involvement in global digital transformation and operation strategies for multinational companies on C-level. He's a serial entrepreneur, business angel, founder of several companies, including the disruptive residential real estate as a service, OWNR.EU. Welcome to PropTech Buzz, Sandeep and Nils. How are you doing
Th-
today?
Thank you, Ravi, for hosting us. Much appreciated.
Thank you. The privilege is mine. And Sandeep, you were MD Investment Banking and Capital Marketers Credit Suisse. And Niels, as I already mentioned, you have been a serial entrepreneur with several companies. And you are also the founder director of Prantos. How did both of you get to know each other, and what transpired towards the vision of building Owner?
Um, Niels, I, and our third co-founder, David Raab, came together in 2019. And Niels is our original founder who came up with the idea of Owner in Germany, and essentially connected with me via LinkedIn. And we got talking, and it was a vision which I shared enthusiastically because trying to get people into home ownership is a global problem, particularly a problem in all major cities. And because it's a capital intensive model to some extent, it kind of appealed to me both as an individual who could see their children not being able to climb the property ladder as the asset price inflation continues to be faster than wage inflation, and it's a modern day problem. And certainly I could see my skill set fitting in to what Owner was trying to build. But perhaps Niels can introduce Owner as to how he came up with that idea, and that will give you a clue as to how he was thinking about it.
Of course. So thanks very much for the introduction. So I think the idea was based on when I was working for a global brokerage, Engel and Völkers, that I've seen that there is a lot of problems people are or challenges people are facing when they want to become an owner of a property. And that is exactly how the idea of owner started, because what we had by then was that people said, well, they looked at the property, you have like 40, 50 people visiting a property, and at the end, they are saying no, but you don't really know the reason. And then what came out is that most of the people had a problem with the financials, so financing the property, or they were not 100% sure. And that was actually how the idea for owner came out, like saying, well, why isn't there a possibility, like with the car rental, just to lease a property and then say, well, I will choose now and decide later if it really fits to me when I have lived in and find that it's a good solution.
Excellent. And did you validate this idea? Like, was this something that you have been talking to a lot of people on the ground, looking at the pattern
Sure.
on what the
Sure.
challenges were, and then came up with this idea?
Yeah, of course. I mean, at that time I was doing an executive MBA at Kellogg, WHU, and that's when I also get a lot of feedback from the people saying, well, that's an interesting idea. You should dive a little bit more deeply into that, and that's how it all came along. So it took some time to find like the right kind of way, and I have to say that. I mean, I'm not coming from the financial part, and it's a lot of financial engineering, and that is exactly where also the three co-founders that we are with David and Sandeep, where this really helps massively, because although I studied finance at some point of time, that's so long ago, I'm more in the, let's say, thinking about the model and also coming from the real estate brokerage side. But then this was was a perfect combination actually with Sandeep and also with David.
Excellent. So before we will go deep into this to understand this entire business model. But before that, maybe Sandeep, could you give us, both Nils and Sandeep, could you give us the state of housing in Germany today? Maybe Germany and UK, because Sandeep, you are based out of UK.
Sure.
What's the state of affairs like between home ownership and rental today? How it is evolving over the years? If you can give a snapshot of the current market environment, that'll be great.
I mean, I can only do it for Germany, I have to say. So for London and the UK market, I will hand over to Sandeep. But let me just give a short glimpse into what's going on in the German market. So I think in general, over the last years, we've seen that it was a rapidly growing market in regards to the sales and especially an increase of the housing prices. And the problem in that is that in the big cities, it's close to, for most people, it's really, they're not able to buy a property because it's so much money they have to invest. They need a lot of equity capital. On the other hand side, when they're buying something, they are like in there for 10 years at least, even more, because you cannot afford to just change and switch to a new one, etc. So it's a really tough decision that you have to take, especially when you're not, let's say, super rich, or it doesn't matter. But for the big middle class, that's really the biggest issue. And when you look at the housing ownership rates in Germany, in the big cities, then you're somewhere between like 14 and 25%, which is super low compared even to the German average, which is roughly 50%. And when you look at the more southern states, you're coming to like 80, 85% of home ownership. And so the idea was also to find a way for people when they're living in big cities on how they can step by step evolve into this being a homeowner instead of, let's say, being a tenant and renting a flat for all their life. So, and of course, in the last 6-9 months, this market has been not been better for tenants, of course, because I mean, nobody's buying right now. So there's a lot of people looking for flats in the rental market, and rental flats are now a super scarce resource with increasing prices all the time. So that's also a big opportunity for us, but we come to that later, I guess. And maybe Sam, you can add something for the UK market as well.
But I think maybe I can just touch a little bit more on the structure of the German market or any residential real estate market. All over the globe, all product markets have been disrupted, including the commercial real estate. But residential market remains two-dimensional. You can either rent or you can buy. It is one of the biggest investment of any household, but there is no concept of try before you buy. And I think the closest analogy of this is the car market. The car leasing market has evolved quite significantly, where people over a period of time either decide or don't decide to buy that particular car, but get time as they use and have the user experience before they take a decision to buy. So our idea was that a two-dimensional market, which is the biggest investment of a household, has never been disrupted before. So we have essentially thought about importing that successful concept of car leasing in bridging the journey from a renter to a buyer. Okay. And as Neil said, the ownership rates in major cities are far lower than the average of any country. And I think that's true whether it's UK or any other major cities across the globe, because the space in a major city is limited. There is constant urbanization, there is constant net immigration, and there is never going to be enough supply to be able to meet the demand. As a consequence, the asset price inflation is faster than the wage inflation. And in Germany in particular, to give you some figures, asset price inflation has been about 7.5% per year since the last 6 years. And the amount of equity that you need to put in a classical German situation is close to 30-35%, which is enormous amount of equity that you need before you get into a mortgage.
Right.
So by giving people the concept of time to build their professional career or get savings in place is what owner is about. So you get access to the for sale market, so properties that are only available for sale. You get to live in them for 3 to 4 years, and then you have a fixed price option to buy. And that's the journey that we want to put young professionals who are building up their career.
Got it. Sounds very, very attractive as a value proposition. What has been the reception like? Are people excited by this proposition? What has been the reception like?
So, Nils, do you want to talk about it first, and then
Yeah,
I can?
I mean, when I started with this, I mean, everyone I was speaking to was saying, well, that's an amazing idea. And of course, everybody was looking from a client's perspective, saying, well, that's a new kind of choice. So that's also what you hear from nearly all sides, saying that this is, first of all, it's unique. I mean, that's really true. And then it's an absolutely new choice. What I think nobody is really thinking about is that it's also a completely new market that has to be established, which makes it a little bit more different, or more difficult, actually. But when you speak to somebody, doesn't matter to whom, you always have this feedback saying, well, that's great. So I would love to do it. I need it in another city. It's not also as we are only in Hamburg and Berlin right now. So many people say, oh, when are you coming to, let's say, Düsseldorf, or when are you coming to even smaller cities? So we are saying, oh, it can take a long time because smaller cities might be a little bit different. But that's the feedback we get, yeah.
Got it. What are the other challenges of home buyers today? Maybe you can add than affordability or upfront investment that they need to make. What are other challenges that you see?
So other challenges. I mean, maybe Sandeep, you want to go a little bit into the financial engineering for buying a property, which is, I think, one of the biggest challenge on all sides, and that's also our target group.
Well, there is this one element is the financial part of it, right? We've talked about, if you look at the constructive market in Germany, typical mortgages are about 80% loan to value. But on the other hand, you then need to put real estate transfer tax, which is around 4 to 6%. Then you need to put brokerage fees, which is about 3% in Germany, pretty high. And then you have refurbishment costs. And by the time you end up actually acquiring the property with some refurbishment, and in Germany, there is a quirk that kitchens don't come with the property that you want to rent or
That's true.
buy. So you need to put in. So not only is the concept of a large amount of equity an issue, it is the hassle factor that comes in, where a person who is acquiring a property will need to go and put some refurbishment and establish a kitchen in the first place. So the hassle factor is high. The third element I find in home buying, which I experience whether you're in London or anywhere, it's not a market that is very transparent or people are very comfortable with. People have to go through the agent, they don't trust the agent, and effectively find that they have to browse through the market, not only for basic insurances, basic buying and legal expertise, and then they don't know whether the house will leak tomorrow or not. They like the area that they want to live in or not, but they have to make the buying decision today. So the idea was to not only give people the financial engineering part of it, but also to give them flexibility, a concept of try, one of the biggest investments that you're about to make before you buy, so that they get transparency into where they're living, what they're buying. So I would say that the challenge is not only financial, it is also the emotional element and the hassle factor that comes with the concept of buying. And technology has changed in my mind, the ability to deliver all of that seamlessly so that the consumer journey is smooth, without any friction. And by taking out these frictional elements, we can also reduce the entry costs for people. And that's what we are aiming to do. We want to basically end up reducing the equity outlay that a household needs to make by almost 20% when they take the option to buy the property in 4 years' time. So the idea is to give people time, but take out any hassle and give them access to a living quality which is superior today, as opposed to buying a rental product or getting into a rental product where a single unit owner landlord is not able to refurbish the property well, furnish it, or pay. The quality of living experience in rental product is generally poorer
Right.
because it's not a professional landlord that basically gives you that opportunity.
Right.
So here, I think you get
So,
quality as well.
so Ravi, if you're a tenant, what's your experience with kitchens in the flat?
Yes, I know that that's the biggest cultural shock that I got when I hear I had to dispense 7
Yeah.
just to get the kitchen. uh, so maybe what would be really helpful is to know what is an ideal customer journey or consumer journey with owner. Say if I as a customer come and want to test out or take a property for rent in the hope that I lease it in the long run and buy it eventually, what would be a experience in your product?
So essentially, it's very simple, right? A consumer can come to the owner website, look at all the properties that are available for sale, because we are able to, through our web crawlers and integration of certain third-party data providers, have the entire display of all the properties that are available for sale, not
Hmm.
the ones that are available for rent on our website.
Mhm.
Along with the purchase price, we provide a lease rate that we will be able to give you that property. So you know coming in what properties are there and what is the likely leasing rate to come out. All you have to do is select the properties that you really want. We give you, when you register with us, an indication of what is the price of the property you can look at based on your affordability and your net income. And you go out and visit the property with the brokers, select the property that you like. Once you have made your decision, you tell owner, I like this property, I would like you to consider buying it. So we go out and negotiate everything with the broker or the private seller. We buy the property, and all we ask you to do is to sign a rental contract with us, which is a lease contract, which is a standard rental contract with a staple purchase option, which you sign. We then buy the property, we refurbish the property, and then in 3 to 4 years' time, you can decide whether you want to buy the property, you want to continue to rent the property, or you want to exit. The flexibility is yours. If you choose to buy the property, we will give you 10% of the lease income that you've paid so far back. That goes towards your deposit for the mortgage provider. And in a sense, owner will provide all the associated services. So we are currently negotiating with the mortgage providers as well, because we can provide 3-year credit or 4-year credit history of the consumer along with the property details. So you will definitely get a better mortgage deal at the end of the process as well. And
Nice.
because we have already done the refurbishment, you don't need to have an equity outlay for that. You don't need to pay broker fees directly. All of that is kind of included in the purchase price, and as a consequence, you don't need that much of equity to transition into a mortgage.
Nice. So a couple of questions here. So is the lease term fixed? You said 3 to 4 years. Is that how it is, or there can be a longer lease term?
So German rental contracts are permanent contracts. They are indefinite, as you probably will know.
Uh-huh.
But all we ask is, when a consumer asks us to buy a property, is that we have a fixed term of 3 or 4 years. It's essentially between 24 months to 48 months,
Right.
that you commit to stay in the property, because when we buy the property, we have to pay the real estate transfer tax and all the other associated costs.
Right.
So we need a certain level of income for a minimum period that allows us to make this entire journey commercially viable.
Right.
And because because we do that, the premium that we charge is marginal. We find that our product pricing, which was, I think, the big journey that we had, what is the right product market fit? We want to make people indifferent between renting or leasing.
Hmm.
And that's where we have got to. So there is a marginal premium that the customer pays over
Yes.
rental product, but because we return 10% of it back at the end of the journey, that premium comes down dramatically, and they have the full flexibility to walk away if they don't like the area or their needs have changed. So think about you, Ravi, coming in to Germany, for example, as an expat, and you don't know whether you will be staying in Hamburg for more than 4 or 5 years.
Right.
You don't know what the buying process looks like. So effectively, you hand over all of that uncertainty to owner, and essentially owner sits on your side of the table because we are both aligned in acquiring the asset at the best possible price.
Got it.
And that way you get a trusted real estate expert partner alongside you without any financial commitment other than the lease contract, which is for let's say 3 or 4 years, which is no different than a rental contract.
Got it. So for the numbers to work, you would expect more and more of your customers to eventually buy the properties, right?
Not
Otherwise,
necessarily.
you are just increasing your inventory, which is
True.
not being bought because that certain property was specifically of interest of a certain customer, and now
That is
that
correct.
customer after 4 years just walked out. So how do you manage this conundrum?
So the owner has set itself up to be indifferent to the choice that the customer makes at the end of the period.
Got it.
And the reason we can afford to do that is because when we are looking at the first time buyer, we are looking at the mid market. At the luxury end, people don't need any help. At the bottom end of the market, government usually provides support. It is the young professional who is climbing their career ladder, who is basically aiming to get into what owner community will look like effectively. So think of a first time buyer. So it's a mid market property, which is, let's say, 80 square meters, not 200 square meters or very small studio apartment. It's 2 3 bedroom property. That property has huge amount of demand for renting. As Neil said, the ownership rates in Germany in major cities is between 15 to 25%, which
Mhm.
means 75% of the people are actually looking for rental product all the time,
Right.
which implies that to the extent that a Ravi decides not to buy that property at the end of fourth year,
Right.
we are okay because we can re-rent the property if we have to.
Got it.
And secondly, unlike a car, it is not a depreciating asset; it's an accreting asset.
Nice.
So we don't mind owning the asset as long as we feel confident that we are able to manage the customer's expectations. So if you continue to rent, we are happy. If you go away, that's fine because we can release or re-rent it. Or if you choose to buy it, sure, we make a minimum return, but we are pricing it at. We obviously charge you a higher price at the end of fourth year, but then it is lower than what we expect the market house price inflation to be, and you will only exercise the option if you think it's an advantageous option for you.
Got it.
So
I Thank you. Um, I had a question that I forgot to ask. So there has been massive changes in the financial markets in the
yes.
last 9 months. Okay, the interest rates have risen sharply. How does that affect your market and your clients?
So you'll be surprised. I mean, we when that happened. So first of all, COVID happened, right? When we started
Yeah.
this business, that was the first major disruption for owner. And
Mm,
but we found that suddenly, because homes have suddenly become so much more important for people because the
yes.
work from home has come into play. People need that extra room to be able to work. We are in a decade-long transition process where people will try to improve their home front,
Mm,
where they will want one extra room, which is therefore more expensive to buy now.
right.
They want that outside space should anything happen again.
Right.
So that was a tailwind for us.
Right.
The second tailwind that came is the interest rate shock. And the reason I say that is because the mortgage rates in Germany moved from 1.25% to almost 4% or 3.5% to 4%, which are the rates today. So there is a 3x change in interest rates. So suddenly people are saying, I don't want to lock in the mortgage right now, but why don't I lock in the property and wait for 3 4 years before I take the decision to buy, because the interest rate cycle will turn and it will be a conscious decision before they can actually go into a mortgage. So in fact, the demand, as Niels will tell you, has gone from what was, let's say, 1x before the interest rate debacle is now 8x. So there are
Mhm.
more people who are registering on our website today than there were before. On the supply side, we are finding that the brokers and the developers or the private sellers are not able to move their stock as fast. So now they're coming to us as a repeat buyer, cash buyer, more and more, so that our inventory and stock and availability of stock has actually gone up as well. If a broker was giving us 2 properties before, now they're coming to us with 8 properties. And therefore, we feel both supply and demand has improved for us under the interest rate shock. And we are clearly giving consumers a value proposition, as we discussed, for them to take their time to decide rather than having to lock in what is a very uncertain time right now.
Got it. And Nils, did you want to add something or?
I just want to say that I think what also adds to that is that by the high inflation that we also have, you have a lot of people in the rental space that do have like also contracts that are then adapting to that. So that's also a big issue. So there's no renovation done, etc., but they have to pay more and more. So that's another thing that comes up as well. But
Got
I
it.
mean, Sandeep mentioned the most relevant points before.
Got it. I'm just curious to know that if somebody goes to the so you source all the properties that are ready to be sold, but you go and you are competing with other suitors, other interested parties as well. So you're not in any way guaranteeing the property for that customer. Am I right? And
That's
also, do you have an additional advantage than other buyers? Like, do you have something that makes you a more attractive buyer for this property?
yeah. So so think about the fact that we are a repeat buyer, we are a cash buyer.
Mhm.
We don't have to go to the banks to get any mortgage approvals, which take between 4 to 6 weeks, typically for most consumers. And the mortgage application rates, approval rates have dropped by 70% in Germany right now because of the interest rate shock. So it is not easy for people to get a mortgage so easily either anymore, which is where we then become a very good counterparty for people to trade with, because they know that we will not only buy 1 property, but we may buy 2, 3, 4, 10, depending on how the consumers react. So we are with the sellers of property for the longer duration, and therefore we definitely have an advantage. And if you look at the developers who are building new builds properties, they are able to sell 80-90% of their stock, but 10% of their stock is stuck. They have project finance. We become a very good outlet because we suddenly not only go to the market that is looking to buy, but also the market that is looking to rent. Don't forget, of the 75% of the people who are trying to rent, 20-30% of them don't even know that they have the option to actually buy. They are just waiting, next year I will be ready. So the moment you give them an option that you can actually rent and then buy at a later date, they suddenly become a bigger clientele that we can address suddenly with that. And then if you're a private seller, you want to sell the property in the market, you're going to the market to sell, but once again, it's not an easy market to shift properties. So for them also, we give the option to be able to effectively target what is a rental market while we become the buyer. So definitely we have an advantage for all categories of people who are looking to sell the property in the market.
Got it.
I don't know if that was clear.
Very, very interesting. Thank no, that was perfectly clear. Sandeep, I also wanted to know, very curious about, so so when a customer is willing to buy, there is a very stringent qualifying criteria and
Correct. Correct.
screening criteria, right? Like credit worthiness and
Yes.
credit scores and stuff like that. Do you have any qualifying criteria for a lease customer,
Sure.
or you are only interested when they are making a purchase decision after the lease terms are over? For the
No.
lease, what are the criteria for you?
So think of us looking at a rental customer, anything that they have to do to get a rental contract, the similar levels of qualification we will do. We will look at their income. We will make sure that they are not paying a lease income more than 35 to 40% of their net income, because we don't want to take on a customer who will struggle to pay their other bills. So we make sure that we give them a price target of properties that fits into around 35 to 40% of their net income. And that's why I said we give them a price target to go and hunt for their ideal home right up front based on certain levels of income. And then we also ask for green shufa. We want credit history to be clean, because we are going to be buying the property at their request. We want to make sure that they have no other credit issues alongside.
Got it. Okay. And also you mentioned that you are going to help them create a credit history with their rental payments so that they can draw mortgage after the lease terms are over in case they are willing to buy. Am I right?
That is correct. So, I mean, when you have a 3 or 4 year history of paying your bills and effectively think of them as paying mortgage payments. So when you go to the bank and you give a certification that these guys have been paying without default their lease rate for these many years, it's definitely a positive for the banks when they receive such a client. Don't forget, and they receive a property that is not a blind property who has not been seen. It's been lived in by the customer. We can give more details than a typical broker that provides detail of the property, because we have owned the property for the next 3 to 4 years. So banks actually love the fact that there is so much more transparency, both for the incoming client and the incoming asset.
Right.
And that's the reason why they get a better deal.
Got it. Excellent. So you mentioned there are 3 options: stay, whether they can stay, they continue to stay in the lease, and then either they can buy it or they can give back and leave. What I do not know. First of all, just curious, how many years has it been for you running operations for OWNR now?
So
we started. Sorry, Sandeep.
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Nils.
No, we started going into the real operation last year in March, actually. So having started from them and then building now up. No, it was 2 years ago. Sorry, we have 23, 21 in March. So it's 2 years now. So that we also have at some point of time now the first ones going to think about either staying in, moving out, or buying the property as well. So we are in the phase of that. Our model will show what people are going to do afterwards in this current situation as well.
Right. And which cities are you operating today?
So right now it's Berlin and Hamburg.
Got it.
We look furthermore at Frankfurt and Cologne as 2 very interesting cities. Also, we see, of course, where there is demand from people who have heard about OWNR. Of course, we are only doing marketing in the 2 cities we mentioned. But we see that there is a lot of demand in these cities as well. And of course, we're also looking at the other big cities, like, for example, Düsseldorf is one. It could also be Munich and Stuttgart. But what we have to see is that there is, on the one hand side, the demand, on the other hand side, prices that are let's say still in a way available for us, that we can use this model in a very good way and also have the demand for that. Because I mean, we cannot buy at a too high price, which is, let's say, not refinanceable with one of our lessees, of course. So, but Cologne and Frankfurt are probably the next cities we are going to relatively soon.
Got it. So the mission of OWNR is to obviously solve house ownership issues, house affordability issues, but there could also be B2B players who would be willing to take your service, like service apartment players who do not want to own it, but maybe they want to lease it and then run their operations. Are you also open to such players, or it is primarily meant for end users?
I mean, that's what many people ask us. So we had one guy calling us saying, well, if you're doing something like that, I want to have something on Sylt, on the small island, which kind of not really belongs to Hamburg, but is very close. Of course, that's not what we are doing. And also, like all this model saying, well, yeah, it's a good idea, you buy the property, I will wait 3 years, see if the price is increasing, rent it out by all the time, maybe on Airbnb, and then buy it if the price is higher, or don't buy it. So that's exactly what we are not doing. So for all, let's say we are not letting a third party in. So it's really, we are buying for the person. And the goal of owner is really also this kind of, let's call it like the social element. We really want to get people into home ownership. We don't want to build up kind of a business model where a clever guy can find a new attractive way to make more profits out of housing. That's exactly what we don't want to do.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying that. Where do you see the future disruption in this space in the coming years? Because you are deeply and entrenched into this, you know this industry like the back of your hand. Do you see further disruption in this space?
So I would say there is some kind. I mean, the market is changing over the last years a little bit, but it's still a very old-fashioned and transparent market, right? I mean, you've seen lots of startups coming in the area of valuation of properties. Also, many are trying to get their hands on making equity able to be bought in smaller portions, smaller shares. I think that's, of course, something you can try. Personally, I'm not thinking that this is something that really has a very positive effect on somebody who really wants to go into being a homeowner. But of course, there are some more interesting models coming up, and I think the market is developing very fast and strongly.
Got it.
I think, Ravi, technology is a very big enabler for disruption. I think what we are attempting today is something that we may not have been able to attempt in the same manner 10 years ago so easily, because technology allows us to create efficiencies in the consumer journey and be able to give them other products that they will need during their tenure of ownership or rent that is seamlessly delivered today on the platform. And that creates alpha for us, but also creates an ability to distribute products for the providers in a much more seamless fashion to somebody who wants to become a homeowner. And a lot of people are trying to disrupt various smaller parts of the segments of the value chain. Nobody is trying to integrate that value chain as we are attempting to, so that it becomes a much more efficient, transparent, and hassle-free process for a consumer. These models have been attempted in the US, but not in Europe so far. And that's why we feel confident that Owner is doing something by creating a new market in Europe, but it's not something that has not been done before. It has been done in the US, but not in Europe at all.
Got it. Could you double down on the technology piece? So you said this is driving efficiency. Could you give an example? Because I thought it is pure play buy and then operate as lease. So it's very financial in a way, right? It's very
Correct. So we are not a real, and that's why it's not only a real estate play, right?
Okay.
I mean, a real estate play is profitable from day one. That's why it's interesting. A lot of the capital that is deployed is secure. I mean, in today's world, you know that profitability and unit economics are critical for anybody investing into new models, particularly since the debacle of last year. And that's where I think Owner is strong, because when you have an asset that has a recurring income and fees from day one, because you're providing a real service, you can use that as the base product to be able to use the platform to be able to integrate other products and services while you are already earning an income to be able to deliver. So just to give you an example, when a consumer comes to us, um, we don't take rental deposit from them for 3 months. We instead have contracted with a partner, a reputed insurance partner, R&V in Germany, to basically provide them deposit insurance. So instead of paying us 6,000 euros of deposit, they enter into a 15 to 20 euros per month deposit insurance, with us. That allows them to kind of release their capital and then use it for savings so that they can build up their equity. We
Nice.
get the same level of credit risk, that is insurance, which is what we need. But on the other hand, we are able to deliver that by integrating that on our platform. The consumer negotiates directly with R&V, who we have set up the processes for, and that can be done seamlessly in a couple of days. They are ready to do that. The same thing we will do with mortgages, the same thing we will do with other products and services in due course of time, so that the platform becomes the place where they can transact. The same thing with property management issues. We have contracted with a third party property management provider. It's also done seamlessly.
On the platform.
Ultimately, you can integrate all these elements that a consumer needs during their lifetime of stay to be able to do that online as opposed to not. So
Excellent. Thank
it's
you. Um, where do you see yourself in the next 2 3 years? Is it all about scale, or are you driving more technology play, more efficiency? What's the plan like?
I would, Niels, do you want to go first and then I can?
Of course. So I think, as Sunny says, technology plays a major part in what we are doing, especially for the efficiency of bringing the product and the let's see together. I think that's one thing where we can get much more on the platform, and also where we can get additionally attractive to people by offering new kind of services. I think that's one thing. But I think on the other side is when you look at really, we mentioned already the cities that we are growing city by city. So because we've started in Hamburg, we have then used this model, which worked very well in Hamburg, to go to Berlin. We rolled it out in Berlin with a few people, so we know exactly whom we need, what we are going to do, and now the platform is ready, so we can go in a very short period of time also to the next and the four next cities. And I think at some point of time, because you asked Sandeep about what's the UK market looking like. So when we really started, we thought that the goal is that what is working very well in the US market is players like Divi, and there are not so many actually, but they are also kind of very successful there, should also be a model which is working in Europe as well, in the big cities, because it doesn't matter. You have the same problem, let's say, in Amsterdam as you have in Munich or in Zurich or in Milan or Barcelona. So when we speak to people with a different kind of background saying, well, I know this market very well, why are you not going to there? Or someone told us, you have to go to Warsaw. So that's like, it's a super good place to be, because that's exactly what they are looking for. And I think that's one of the big parts on our agenda, to be in more than one country on the one hand side, but also roll out the technology platform even more. Sunny, you
Excellent.
might want to add.
Okay. I would say think, Ravi, like an Uber-like model where all metropolitan cities within Europe at the very least and globally thereafter will be a target market for us. But we want to bed down in Germany first, and Germany is one of the largest European countries. It's the richest country. It's got a 84 million population, 43 million units. The TAM in Germany alone is large, but I think within the time frame that you suggest, we will look to expand beyond Germany. And certainly the metropolitan cities are the target market for us for this. That's one. The second goal and mission in my head, and I'm sure Niels and David and all others in OWNR agree, we really do want to make a huge social impact,
Yes.
because the statement that I like the most was said to us by the mayor of Hamburg, which is, you are a great commercial solution for a socio-political problem of our times, because the governments have to provide subsidies all the time to be able to help people into home ownership. It's a political nightmare. And I think a commercial solution like Owner is a very good way of liquefying the for sale market into the rental market, therefore improving supply and giving people an opportunity to get into home ownership, um, is something that is valuable. In 2 3 years time, I'm hopeful that that message will be also something that Owner is strongly associated with, besides its own growth from a profitable point of view.
I think that was a great note to end this, because social impact is so important. Primarily because private equity institutional investment is getting into residential and they're acquiring properties like anything. And home ownership, and nobody's thinking about the common man, right? So it has become a massive asset
Completely.
class for big institutionals and private
that's definitely true.
You are actually solving. So, Nils, you want to add something on that?
No, I wanted to say that's definitely true what you were saying. So
and you are actually on the opposite spectrum, helping balance and bring sanity to for the economy and for the citizens. So thank you so much for that. So this brings us to the end of a very, very insightful conversation. Sandeep, Nils, and Kai, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for taking time out. We'll be very curious to see the journey of OWNR, and all the best for your future.
And thank you,
Thank you very
Ravi, for
much.
hosting us. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you.